Okay, hi. I just wanted to do a little video, sort of gender differences and that. Genuinely, if people, which I hope people do, is sort of research before they decide to adopt. Sorry, I'm just adjusting the camera a little bit. Uh, so in theory, you should sort of do your research and you'll sort of know sort of more physical and mechanical sort of changes and differences between the girls and the boys, such as boys need more cleaning, girls have female related illnesses, etc. etc. But a lot of the time when I get asked about uh sort of the differences, people are more wanting to know sort of the emotional, the interactions, social, that sort of side of it. So I just wanted to do a video sort of talking about that because there's a lot of information, a lot of experience, and that I want to try and get into it, which would be a bit hard to write down. This, so I'm just video it basically. Um, One of the main things I do get asked about is sort of is do, like basically boys have got this thing where they fight, girls don't, boys don't get on, girls do. This is partly true and partly not true. Boys are genuinely harder to bond. So if you've got two adult boys, you're gonna have a lot more trouble bonding them, and there's gonna be a lot more sort of maybe potential to fight, and they may be a little bit to and fro a little bit more. Whereas girls genuinely are easier to bond, and they will sort of bear with me, I can't think of straight. The kids are going off like fireworks upstairs. But girls genuinely will get on with each other quite quickly and less inclined to sort of start a fight and that. Um, in general though, because obviously if you come to a rescue, 9 times out of 10 they're already bonded, or the rescue will do the bonding for you. So this sort of thing about with bonding is really not an issue, and isn't a thing to worry about when you're getting a guinea pig, whether it be girls or boys. What does matter though is, and this is probably where the reputation comes from a little bit. So if you get two babies from, say, a breeder or a pet shop, which is quite common, and they've then got to go go through puberty, they have all these hormonal changes and that. They also, as guinea pigs grow and they age, their personalities change naturally anyway. So if you've got two babies, and babies will get on with anyone. If you get two babies though, they're gonna get on. But as they grow and all these changes happen and that may mean that later down the line, especially during puberty, it may cause issues then. Another reason where it might come from with boys being more like sort of more likely to fight and that is from the fact that boys and girls' dominance behaviours are completely different. So boys you will get when, obviously within any bonded pair, girls or boys, dominance behaviour is absolutely necessary. It happens. It might happen a lot. It might not happen that much. But either way, normally you'll get sort of some sort of dominance behaviour, and the problem is boys sort of pick up this sort of, like, they're boisterous or they fight and that because of the way they display dominance behaviour. the way I always explain to people is boys are in your face. It doesn't mean that it's fighting or anything. It doesn't mean it's any different to the girls. It's just more in your face. So like boys are going to be more likely to sort of teeth chatter at each other. They're going to be more likely to hump each other. They're going to be more likely to chase each other about. So all of this, if you're seeing all of this, you can very quickly see it. It's very in your face. It's very there. It's very noisy. So you see all this behaviour and people just assume that they're not getting on. This is completely normal behaviour. The difference is with girls, the girls dominate more subtly. The way I always say it is basically girls are more bitchy. They will go for a more emotional strike. Like things like not allowing the other to eat from a bowl. You may not notice this straight away because it's not as in your face, but they might do something like that. They might like sort of nudge them way, like basically I'm boss, you go. They're very much more likely to nip at each other, which is literally quick, no sound, nothing, just quick nip. So you might not see it. And sort of, I find her a lot more emotional. I've had an incident where a group of girls have actually kicked essentially another guinea pig out of the group, and they basically start ganging up, bullying, and doing it that way, and that is their sort of dominance. So girls can be quite nasty with it. They can also, whereas sort of boys will sort of chat teeth or make low rumbling noises and that, girls are more likely to do sort of high pitched squeaks, which you may think, oh, just squeaking. So you're gonna sit there and think the boys aren't getting on, but the girls are. Whereas it's all the same behaviour, just completely different. So it's like that sort of, when it comes down to dominance and how they behave and interact with each other, I don't actually think one or the other is any better. As long as you've got someone who's dominant and someone who's not, you're always going to have a little bit of this going on. And the only difference is the boys, you may notice the behaviour more because it's more in your face, but it doesn't mean that girls don't display that behaviour, and it doesn't mean that they're any easier or that they socialise any easier with each other or anything like that. In fact, a lot of my own personal experiences is boys being really difficult to sort of find a partner for, but I always find that once they've found that partner, they actually hold this very tight bond, and they're actually a lot more sort of inseparable per se. And even though boys are typically known for needing a bit more space, I find that once they find that amazing sort of bond, they actually need that they utilise a lot less space than the girls that are bonded. Like, because girls I find are a bit more sort of, as I said, they've got a bit more of this bitchiness going on and that, and I think that that emotional sort of treatment that they have of others can be seen in sort of like, they can sort of sit with each other but they won't be sat with each other per se. Like in terms of sort of grouping up and sleeping as well, like I always find that girls will group up and sleep with just about anyone, but they won't hold that. They'll easily go off and do it with anyone else and that, whereas boys will sort of stay in their huggles and they know who they're bonded with and they enjoy that. And I find this is kind of, again, my personal experience. Some people might say different, but I also find that boars are more likely to hold amazing bonds with their owners as well. They tend to be a lot more outgoing and sort of more chatty and that, and they will genuinely draw up a bond with their owner a lot better, I think. Whereas girls are a little bit less inclined to draw up that bond, and you tend to not feel the connection as much with a girl. I personally find it's like I've got a couple of my own girls, and I've like had them from babies, and obviously they're about 2 now, and they know who I am, and the time with me. They know me enough that the time with me. They'll sit there, but they're more interested in going and speaking with the other girls, or going out on the grass, or eating that food. And they're not that bothered about sitting there and having a fuss per se. Whereas a lot of the boys, even the ones that I've rehomed and that, I've noticed a tighter bond kind of gets struck up, and kind of sits more with me, and more happy to sit there and have a fuss, and a little more inclined to sort of pay me attention than food attention, for example. Like when it comes to sort of my personal sort of experience and thoughts on it, um, for me personally, I've always preferred boys. Now, I own two girls, like I mentioned before. They're the only ones that I own myself. They're mine. They'll never be rehomed, and I'll have them until they end up passing away and that now. But I've always preferred the boys that I have come through the doors, and I do much more prefer the boys. I find that they've got a lot more character. They're a lot more sort of, like I said, I feel like I get more of a bond out of them. They're they're a lot sort of more maintenance, should we say, because that sort of more character thing definitely makes them a bit hard work. All the guinea pigs I've ever had any sort of issues with, trouble with, sort of escaping, jumping, um, like just anything that's like sort of mischievous and that, and a bit more hard work and that, has always been boys, and always been down to the character. Because I do find that boys are a lot more outgoing, a lot more character well, like full of character and that. It's like, and they're a lot more. Don't I don't know how. Like, I wouldn't say sensitive, but you do get sort of like they need a lot more attention. But it is known that sort of boars are quite happy with humans. There are cases where sort of boars have lost like partners and that, and they will cope absolutely fine by themselves as long as they've got the human company. And that is really a really rare thing to come across with sows. A lot of the time sows really heavily rely on company of their own. Every guinea pig does. I'd never say have a guinea pig by themselves, but obviously sometimes that's not always possible. And if I was to say, I'd say girls heavily rely on other female guinea pigs, or other guinea pigs in general, might be neutered, but they heavily rely on other guinea pigs and their company, and they don't really, they're not fussed, and they don't really. I've never known a girl actually sort of prefer to have a sit in a fuss than to be roaming with a mate, whereas the boys, they'll happily come away from their mate for a while to have a fuss, sort of thing. I can't really think of anything else at the moment. I think I covered the majority of things that I was going to say, but if I do think of anything, I shall do a part 2, and I shall sort of squeeze it all into another video. So there you go, some differences in terms of personality, social and that. So I hope that helps anyone choosing in the future. Bye.